Good morning. It is 13th of October, and this is our work session. Are we rolling? All right. We have two topics listed. We'll start with Ken. We had some information from Ken to talk about with EMS monitors, and then we'll talk about museum.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what I've been working on since this is a work session. I've been working on for the past, actually, couple of years, but this has kind of come to a head. We utilize the Philips MRX cardiac monitor, which is a big, giant name for the thing we hook up to your chest to look at your heart rhythm and also to defibrillate you, like Johnny and Roy, the clear thing, and then do pacing. We'd use that to do blood pressure monitoring, pulse oximetry, end-tidal CO2, and we transmit data to the hospital using that device.
Simultaneously.
Yep, we can do all that simultaneously. It's a pretty neat gizmo. It's a box about this big, weighs about 20 pounds. They're 10 years old. Thing about that is this was new technology in 2005. So what I did and what I've been doing for the past couple of years is going around and talking to different vendors when I end up at either meetings in Columbus or in Toledo or wherever I am. Chat with them and find out what the latest technology is that's out there. So what I've been doing is research on what we currently have and what the next generation of the same device is. And the reason why I've been doing that, looking at the same device with the next generation of it, is for the purposes of training. For what our guys are, I want something that's familiar to them. Yeah, I know it's the same as if you're used to driving a Chevy pickup truck and you drive a 1992 Chevy pickup truck. If you get into a 2015 Chevy pickup truck, pretty much guarantee you that the brake's going to be in the same spot, the windshield wiper's going to be in the same spot, the key, all those things are in the same spot, generally. So training and getting you ready for that is not all that difficult. But if you jump out of a Chevrolet into a Lamborghini, you're going to have little issues because everything's not, even the fuel filter's on the opposite side. At least I think so. So what I did was I went out and I got a couple of quotes for what we currently have, but the next generation of it. So from 2005 technology, the Philips monitor, to the 2015 technology, Philips monitor. And then I went on state purchasing and I looked at what the two competitors do that do the same thing. And I found that, I have the documentation of that. There's only two other competitors to this company that does this exact same device. One of them is Physio Control, which makes a life pack, which everybody's heard of, and Zoll Medical Corporation, which makes a monitor called the X Series. Both of these are over $30,000 piece.
We need 7?
Need 10. Now the one we're buying, the one that I want to buy, the one that we currently have, is right around $20,000 for each. So what I'm saying is this is what I would call a capital purchase. This is a big deal. Think of it as we do it once every 10 years. Be about $200,000 project. And we won't have any added costs other than what the cost of the contract will be for the devices, because the training of these is going to be relatively simple. Any of the training that we're going to need to do, I can do. One thing on this contract that I think that is not necessarily needed is that 5-year or 3-year parts and labor warranty. We have people here locally that do biomedical engineering and repair, and I use them. In my experience with this same machine, our local guy is just as good as the guy you send it to. So I don't think we really need to pay for that. But you get 1 year parts and labor with the purchase, and hopefully if anything's going to break, it'll break within 1 year.
Is there any money that we can get on the old ones to a much smaller municipality or a
they're giving me a
park or something
trade-in.
that they don't need the greatest and latest?
When the devices were new in 2005, they were $16,000. So now they're about 20, 21, and they're going to give us a $3,500 per unit trade-in. And really getting the $3,500 up front is easier than trying to sell them through auction or something like that in my mind. That's
So you got 3,500 times 10. So you got 35,000.
Yep.
And the new ones again are how much?
Or 20, that's what I was saying, so 20?
Right, so our total project cost would be about $210,807, and that includes the trade-in.
Ken, you lost me. I thought it was 30,000 a unit.
No.
Okay.
No, that was the competitive unit that he
Yeah.
priced out to see if
Yeah.
they
These
were
two
the
are
same.
up here.
So the $20,000 unit is the one you're
I want
looking
right
at,
about here,
Okay.
plus the $3,500 credit.
right?
And that is, you know, when you get into in your field, it's an area that I always feel, yours in the sheriff's department, I feel was probably the greatest responsibility that's on my shoulders and our shoulders. You're talking about life or death there. And, you know, I don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. The ones for 20,000, are they, in your estimation, and I realize that we're in a gray area here, is it what we need, or, I mean, you know?
Yes.
If I have a loved one out there and you're coming to pick them up, I don't want to say, well, geez, I'm sorry,
Right.
but so-and-so passed away because we didn't have the latest technology. I mean,
Well, I've got about-
you understand, we're
Right.
difficult, it's a
I
difficult.
got about 130 guys in the field, and these are what they're used to using. Now, this is a new version of it, but like I said, I'd rather have them show up in the Chevy pickup that they're used to using than show up in a brand new Lincoln pickup that they've never seen. They don't even know how to get to the windshield wipers on.
Okay.
So yes, this
Come to
device,
this, I'd rather have.
and this device, we're comparing apples to apples. It's just, there's the really, really nice, beautiful big red apples, and these are the littler ones that they taste just the same, but you gotta cut more of them up to make a pie.
And the transferring of the information,
Yep.
that's where the things are changing so drastically that
That is a fact.
that's the reason for needing the bigger units, or the newer units.
Right. The current technology that we use cellular technology to transmit our 12 leads, and only half of our monitors can do it. And that was done through grant money through ProMedica about 5 years ago. So they invested $10,000 into 5-year-old machines, knowing full well that durable medical equipment only lasts an average of 10 to 12 years. But they did that because we didn't have any ability whatsoever. Now these devices have the ability to transmit utilizing Wi-Fi, which is internet. And with that comes a commitment to having that type of technology in our vehicles, which I think we'll be able to do at a pretty reasonable cost, and it's always on, and it's always reliable. Whereas the cell, according to whoever, depends on who you talk to at Verizon or AT&T, the technology is already obsolete. The fact that it still works is only because we use 10-year-old cell phones. And if one of those cell phones dies, the only place you can buy a replacement for it is eBay, and that's maybe. They no longer make that technology. So it's no longer supported, so we can no longer buy parts. So the way I look at it is, we need to get away from the old ones as quick as we can, reasonably. I mean, we don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater and not have anything, but we want to get away from it as quick as we can because it's going to start failing. And as it starts to fail, we don't want to be in a position where it fails in a critical moment. You know what I mean? So that's why we have to consider replacing this and doing it with the latest technology that's available. And I know we've all talked a lot about technology lately and how things in communication and all this, but it's expensive, but and we're dealing with technology today. A year from now, they may come out with something we don't know about. But I can't plan for that. I can only plan for what we have.
Ken, even with Wi-Fi, there are sometimes some dead spots.
That's
There
what I was
is.
gonna ask.
That's scary.
It is, and especially
The reason I ask, is there a backup to that? I mean, if you can't transmit, what do we do?
well, if we can't transmit when we have a paramedic on the scene, it's really not a problem. Our paramedics can actually interpret that, make a communication radio call, and still get the appropriate treatment taken care of. The transmission of all this information is so that all of our personnel who are not necessarily paramedics can still transmit that data to the hospital and have a doctor look at it immediately.
I assume we've looked into potential grant money that might be out there and you didn't see anything?
No, the grant money that's available for EMS now is fairly minimal, and we get as much as we possibly can. We had $8,000 this year, and that's what we invested in our new CPR device with. But $8,000 for a project like this, kind of a drop in the bucket. So we're doing our best with grant money, and I've not seen anything that, as far as cardiac monitors, defibrillators, pacers, and 12-lead generators, I've never seen a grant money for that.
So what your request is roughly 200 and some thousand.
Roughly 210,000. Now, there are some caveats to that, and I don't know if we're gonna need 10. 10's what we currently have. So that would replace everything that we currently have on all the county ambulances that are there, plus the Echo unit. And it would provide us one backup like we currently have. So if one of them does go down, I can just hand them one and then get this one repaired. And that's carried in our backup ambulance at Public Safety. That is a ready to go 100% ambulance. So it's a backup because it doesn't have a crew assigned to it, but it's ready to go. And I like to keep one like that. Now, like I said, we may be fine with 9, but I think we won't know that until December, first of the year maybe.
You're talking 190 or 210.
Yes, sir.
Is this something we can, I guess, time to think about a little bit, look at, I don't know what we might have in for capital stuff anywhere in a budget. And then I know because of everything else we've already seen hit this year, the revenue's being reduced, but carryover money, or if we want to budget it.
This
I
is
don't
a
know how
one-
long this quote is good for.
But it's good for 30 days, but I'm sure I can stretch it. And this is a once every 10-year purchase. I won't come in here again and ask you for this until 10 years from now. But the thing of it is
I can't find any list.
I was hoping that this is what, and maybe I don't understand how government works, but I was hoping that this was what like carryover would be used for, a one-time purchase of things like this. We'd use that. I realize carryover is probably a dirty word at this point.
I'm thinking what carryover?
That's what I was thinking too, actually. I'm with you on that.
What?
At least we really know what it is or what it isn't, but because we are in October, it's the
Well, you
closer to
know-
the end of the year, the better.
On a lighter note, the EMS has met revenue. We're meeting our goals. We're charging forward. We're doing what we can do against all the people that are talking that we
Ken,
can't.
if you're called to the scene, the rate that you charge someone for going there is the same?
Yes, sir.
No matter what you do?
Well, it depends. It's based on Medicare. Medicare kind of sets the standards. Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, they make the rules of what we can charge for what.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of codes, there's real complicated medical billing stuff, and we hire a company that takes care of that for us. So we either bill a base rate for a basic life support run, which is about $500, give or take. And then we have ALS, which is advanced life support, which is where we use machines like this, which goes up a couple of $100. And it can be upwards of $900, depending on what we do. There's 2 rates of ALS.
Now, if you would dispense any medication, then would you charge for that?
Yes, sir. ALS 2, we got up into about $945 per run. BLS about $580. ALS 1's in the $600 range, and then it jumps from there. So all of our stuff is set by the documentation and the devices that are used by the crew. The medical coders determine what that is by the documentation. And then they make a judgment of what that is, ALS 1, ALS 2, or BLS, send it off to Medicare or to the insurance company. And they either accept it or reject it, and then we start the process again.
But the pricing is the same, the Medicare pricing is always the pricing, the private pay doesn't make any difference.
Right. We base our terms off of Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Therefore, we are compliant across the board with not asking for too much, we're not gouging, or we're not asking for too little, which is a problem that a lot of places run into, especially municipalities. They ask for too little. Well, we go right with what they call Medicare Max, and then we're right in line with what all the insurance companies use as well. Tends to help us out as far as when people question, why am I charged so much for a bill? Well, here's why, and there's 40,000 pages of documentation that Medicare won't provide.
I almost hate to make this statement, but everyone has to realize the financial responsibility that falls on us as commissioners. And we won't really know until we put the budgets together, but I just like to get my thoughts of my fellow commissioners, and certainly yours, Ken. Is this something we could break into a 2-year thing? We get half of them this year and half of them next year, and then how you divvy those up is, I wouldn't want to be in your position for all the money in the world there, but I'm looking at it from a budgetary standpoint, and again, I'm not advocating that, but when we get right down to the brass tacks of the budget,
Well, historically, I know that Stacy's very familiar with what we did. When we bought these deals in 2005, it was between 2005, 2006, kind of like right now would be between 15 and 16. So they, in 2005, they financed it. I don't I don't think we should borrow money unless we don't have any. I mean, my mom might have told me that, I don't know. But if you got the money, you know, don't pay somebody to borrow theirs. But that's what I'm saying. We may be able to do it that way, finance it, carry it out over a couple of years.
or even, I guess, you look at this, you look at carryover. Half of it in 2015 and the other half, so you do a December, January one. I just trying to look at creative ways, because the bottom line is, we got a balanced budget here. And bottom line above all else.
I wanted to get it to you as soon as I could, so that we could make those decisions and talk about it. And work session seemed to be the obvious choice for me.
Perfect, yeah.
So,
Plenty to think about.
I mean, what's the reaction from my fellow commissioners on something like, could we look at a 15, 16? If we got a carryover, we could do it all in 16 or 15?
If we split it, I don't know that we will know the true carryover going into 16. When do, you get all those POs that gotta close out and
Right,
all
that
that
doesn't
stuff.
close till March.
So
but
we'll have
we'll
March before.
We'll have a general idea, you know,
Yeah.
going into January, what our carryover is.
From a true cash flow standpoint,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any difference whether you write a check in 2015 or whether you write a check
Yeah.
half and half. I mean,
Well.
it goes into reserves. 200,000 is 200,000. You can split it any way you want, but the fact is, we spend the 200,000.
What we're doing is playing the shell game.
it's a big expense, and then there's a couple that EMS comes up with every now and then, and this one's a 10-year, and then our vehicles. Those are our two major expenses.
We do put money
And we
in
do,
a till every year for vehicles.
We do.
With this type of expense,
We don't.
I think we need to,
right,
start accruing for that somehow. I
Right.
really can't understand government accounting, but
right.
you need to
I agree,
do some,
but
that's a big hit, Ken. It's a big hit.
it is. But once every 10 years or so, and I think last time we held on too long. Our monitors were almost 15 years old when we replaced them, and it was a huge undertaking to get people trained because of the difference in technology. This won't be that. It'll be a smoother transition. And that's why I'm standing here today instead of 5 years from now begging with my hat in my hands. I want to get this started. Even if you say no now, if you say yes later being just a couple of months, I just want to make sure I get this to you in front of you. So, because I know it's a big decision, I know it's a lot of money, but this EMS is medical. You can either add aviation to the front of something and make it 10 times more money, or add medical and it's 10 times more money.
I don't think anybody here is saying no.
Well, that's
We're saying
encouraging.
we need to.
Then I feel pretty good about how I presented this then. Thanks for your time. I'll sit down. As soon as you said you didn't say no, I'm gonna sit down.
Just so we make myself perfectly clear, if there's anybody else in this room who's asking for money, please leave now. Yeah, I've had all my heart can handle today.
Well, our next item that we had scheduled to talk about for this work session is the museum. And last week we had I think our fourth meeting. Fran Fleet is here from the Barnsteinzer Museum Foundation, and she is one of the two representatives from that group that's on that task force reorganizational committee that we've been going through the steps with. And we kind of got to the point, led by our gentleman from SCORE, by Chuck, in our discussions we thought we really ought to float this here just as a conceptual idea only, but I sent to both of you, or somebody did scan in, a copy of the cooperation and operating agreement that the Wood County Historical Society has with the Wood County Commissioners. And we're comparing apples and oranges when we talk about sizes of facilities and things like that. So it's not, it's just the conceptual idea, because we're kind of getting to that point of recognizing main things that everybody in those meetings see and value for the museum and its future in Seneca County. And then also some goals that we think we've got some common goals there. And we need to know now, should we keep working towards that? And if so, it's ultimately any changes in that are gonna come back to us. It's up to us, do we have the museum to do what we want currently? You know, we have the lease agreement with the Historical Society, who's got one more full year, they got to the end of 16, under that lease arrangement to be our managers of the museum. So that continues, and, which is good in the sense as at the same time, we're not ready to come forward with a plan. But the group kind of wanted to have a feel, because I keep emphasizing there, when I share my opinions, that they are my opinions and not the opinions of this board, because I haven't discussed things and you haven't directed me to go back with anything in particular, because we haven't gone there. So that said, I don't know if you've read this, what questions you have, but wanted to.
I do, I have read it, I have a couple questions.
All right.
First of all, I agree with the concept that the county should take responsibility for the museum. That's number one. Number two, in reading over the cooperation agreement that now exists in another county, Wood County specifically, I don't see any place where they're requiring a separate board or the director to submit a budget on an annual basis, unless I missed that. I read it over 3 times.
They have other policies that then follow with this agreement.
Okay, I would just think that that would be a major
Yeah.
point.
They do. They have a, Fran, is it called a board? They have a board for the museum, and that group, their director is required to submit, because the way their funding is, they get monies from an inside millage. And so this explains what financially the county does for them, but then she's got accountabilities, reporting to the county as well as reporting to her board, and does require budgeting and a whole outline of committees and all that stuff, but there are more.
Okay, well, I mean,
Good
again, I
question.
agree with the concept, but I think there ought to be something in the agreement that says that has to be run in a fiscally responsible manner. It says that, you know, what responsibilities the board has and what responsibilities the commissioners have, but, and, you know, who has to pay for what, but we have to make certain that there is funding available and that it's within the realm of reasonableness
Right.
regarding the amount that they spend.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I have shared, again, my thoughts, and that's why I thought we needed to discuss it here, was that if we're going towards this concept of having some type of cooperative operating agreement, does that indeed support having paid staff, a paid director, full-time, part-time, whatever is identified and needed? And if so, does this group, us as a board, you're more likely gonna want to make sure we see structure with this document and other types of documents outlining things you mentioned, Mike, in order to do that, because that's where some are thinking, for a while, part of the discussion was, well, you know, why can't we just go back to what we were? And then as Chuck gathered from input from everybody there, he says, I think you're gonna need to know from the board what they support, but what I'm hearing Holly say is, I'm not sure they're going to go along with your goals without some outline structure
Right.
indicating that. And again, yeah,
I know that we get back to financial, but I think it's a responsibility of the director, whoever that ends up to be, to run the museum in such a manner that they can put projects forth, or they can establish the admission amount, whatever that might be, for certain events that happen that maybe would generate, I mean, one of the charges you can make of a director is you have to generate some income here to help us support this thing. And I think the thing that's missed, and that we have to reiterate, is that when we accepted that building, we being the county, we agreed that we would keep that building in good repair. I think that we have been remiss over the years in not complying with that agreement that was made. So I think it's our responsibility, I know it's our responsibility to do what we are doing, and that is to find out what it is we need to make certain that structure is in good, stable condition, and then to go from there. But, you know, if we're gonna have the responsibility of maintaining the building, then we ought to have the authority that comes with that in directing the activities of the building. So, that's why I think that we need to have it under county control.
so down the path with some formalized structure, we're on the right path.
I believe so. The other major concern that I have is we there has been some discussion and some controversy about who owns what. So I really believe that we need to come up with a way to take inventory, you probably discussed this, and to make certain that everybody understands and agrees that that statue belongs to the county or it belongs to the Historic Society or whomever. And if we're gonna house these items, then there ought to be some compensation back to whoever owns the building to house the items. Or those items are just county owned, one of the two. So, you know, I think there has to, at this point in time, I don't know that anybody knows exactly what's in there. I know I don't. And from talking to folks that are there, I'm not sure that they do. We know we have stuff, but we don't know what that stuff is.
And when we did an amendment to their current management lease with the Historical Society, prior to you being on the board, a year ago, right about this time, and we changed where we took on taking the maintenance or the utility cost and stuff that they had, so we'll have that for the end of their lease agreement through 16. We also had added in there some stipulations for them to dealing with the inventory. And one was that by the end of this first year, with the change, that they have a plan in place and then start working towards how we might implement that plan. They have presented the first draft of a plan for dealing with the inventory. So that's good, and that'll start the process, and it will, everybody assured me there, Fran's got more experience than anybody else in this room with those kinds of things, the time it will take to do that inventory, regardless of what we use, but they're looking at software similar to what the foundation owns to do the inventory that the foundation owns.
Yeah. I would just, you know, the comment that I would make there is before we take on responsibility to a greater degree than we have, I would want to have it understood exactly what it is that's in that building and who belongs to what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I have not had an opportunity to read the wind-up agreement there, but certainly my feeling is that I believe a board needs to be established with the three entities, county, historical, and the foundation. And I believe that it has to be equally shared as to the financial aspect of it. Now, if that has a full-time director or not, you know, to me, the majority rules there, but whatever it is, as you increase the budget of the entity, it's a third of it's gotta be paid by each of the members there. So, you know, it's easy to say, well, let's do this, this, and this, but I'm not willing to put any money. If you're not willing to put any money in it, then you can't do it. So, to me, that's, again, just kind of reiterate again, a three-way board, I think, is extremely important because of some of the past issues and so forth, and the financial responsibility of the operations of the museum needs to be shared equally amongst the three members. And I think fundamentally, if you get that, then everything else kind of falls in place. I kind of like Commissioner Kirschner's responsibility of, you know, because I know there's a lot of issues, well, this person owns this, or this organization owns this, well, this doesn't own that. Maybe to resolve the whole thing, and I don't know legally if that can be done, but since we are the keepers of the house, shall we say, maybe if the ownership goes over to the county with the stipulation that we can't sell it. But, and I realize, and this is kind of a gray area here, but I say ownership goes over to the county, but if there are donations that were made to the foundation, that ownership always stays with a private individual, you know, then, and I don't really know if I have an artifact that I want to donate to the foundation, and Fran, you may be able to answer this, and that they give it under your direction and you give it to the museum, but they want the ability that at someday they could take it back. Is
That would be a loan, and I don't know that the foundation has anything on loan to us.
Okay,
It has
so
been
somebody
given
gives it to the foundation.
Outright.
Yeah.
So the foundation owns things and they wish to loan it to the museum for display, then there needs to be proper documentation that it's gonna be here from this month to this month, and it goes back, versus like you were indicating, who's reliable for what's in there, and all of that kind of stuff. We can't just house everybody's stuff, but, so there's all that stuff too, because we got a carriage house full of things out there.
Could there be an interest that the foundation and the Historical Society give that ownership over to the county, as long as the county, again, it's a dicey area here, as long as the county says, we're not gonna sell it. It's not gonna be sold.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, but
Because-
it overcomes this ownership issue. Now it all goes to the county,
Yeah.
period.
But
Can't sell it though.
two things. A lot of the donation to the foundation by individuals was, for whatever reason, they didn't want it to be given to the county. They were mad at the county or, you know, whatever, I don't know. So we have said, the foundation has said, we will not sell anything. We also pay insurance on what we own in the museum.
So there is proper documentation then.
And we have, in fact, I'm working on it right now, grants of property. We have copies of the paperwork with the numbers and the description, and I'm putting that in the Past Perfect software right now.
As long as there is undisputed ownership, then I'm fine. But what concerns me, if it's disputed ownership, then there's a problem with that. And that Commissioner Kirschner's solution may be an option, may be. But if it's undisputed, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Well, there was some concern, I mean, we'll put things on the table as they are. There was some concern that some of the stuff was leaving the back door. That people were selling things to continue the operation of the museum at some point in time. So, I mean, there has been that conversation. That if there wasn't enough money, somebody would sell something and that would be used to continue with the operation. Now, true, untrue, urban legend or not, I don't know, but that's the conversation. And I personally don't have any problem whether the Historical Society owns it all. But somebody needs to take ownership and responsibility for all the items in that museum. To have it haphazardly owned by the county or by the Historical Society or by the museum board seems to me to be a convoluted mess and doesn't really cure the problem. You know, I think that one entity should own the contents of the museum whenever possible. And they're responsible for insurance and whatever else that involves. Our responsibility, our committed responsibility from previous administrations is to maintain that building and to make certain that there is a place to house these artifacts. That is our only responsibility from the deed that I read at least. It would be much simpler if the county owned them all, but we all know that there were suggestions a while ago just to dispense with the museum, but we don't want that to happen. So I don't care who owns it, but somebody needs to own it, take responsibility for it. I do know the county has a responsibility to maintain that building, and we ought to take that seriously.
Okay. All right.
Only I applaud you in taking this on. It's a monumental task. It sounds like it's moving forward. And I'm pleased that we're addressing, and this is really a long-term issue. This is an issue that's been there since we were all much younger.
Yeah, yeah. No, we are making progress and just doing that consideration of time to start our regular meeting. We'll wrap this up here and appreciate the input and give me good stuff to take back. Thank you, Fran, for being here as well to help me reinterpret this when we meet again, and we'll keep moving forward. So this will be.
Is there anything else, Fran, you'd like to say
Yeah.
about it?
About the museum,
About-
yes. The foundation board did vote to participate in the porch project for the 30 grand.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's
We
now
are
official.
in the process of letting bids out.
I'll check with Tanya.
Okay.
They got it to her last week.
Wonderful.
She was just reading through it to make sure.
Okay.
I'll check with her.
And probably what's gonna do, instead of being able to break it in two like we hoped, I think we're gonna do it all at once. Realistically, probably it's not gonna happen this fall. It's gonna be a spring or whatever project,
Yeah.
whatever whoever gets the contract does it. But we could not do this if it wasn't for the support of the foundation and of Tiffin Charitable.
That's right, absolutely.
I mean, that's just, again, no different than
Okay.
what
Well, we
Ken
have
and I
an
just
interest in the
talked.
building.
Pardon?
We have an interest in the building since we've got contents there.
That's
you know?
right, that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, I'll wrap up our work session. Officially call to order the regular board session for Tuesday, October 13th. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Join me for a brief prayer. Lord, thank you for this day, and as we gather at this time for the purposes of conducting public business, please be with us and guide us in knowledge and wisdom. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stacy?
Here.
Commissioner Zoller?
Here.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Here.
We'll have the signing of the journal, and I'll accept a motion to approve the DVD recording from our previous session of Tuesday, October 6th, and the index.
Make a motion, we approve it as outlined.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Okay. Adjustments to the agenda. Do we have anything we needed to add to the printed agenda as such? Anybody?
I'd just like to have an outline of where we stand out with the museum bid. I mean, somebody,
Oh,
probably,
HSA contribution.
it's old.
Old, yes.
Anything else? Nothing? Okay then, let's start with the HSA contribution.
Any more thoughts on that discussion, the potential increasing, if we want to leave it the same? Open enrollment is on Monday and Tuesday of next week, and I'm sure they want to include this in it, especially if it's increased, to try to help influence or persuade somebody to switch over to the high deductible health savings account.
from the public's view, what we're talking about here is the health savings account that the county contributes towards that,
Correct.
which is currently at what level?
250 for single and 500 for family.
Okay, so that's what we're doing right now.
Yep.
And the proposal, there was two proposals, as I recall.
Well, we talked about, the ideal situation would be 1,500, but we talked about incrementally doing that or not doing anything. So, I mean, there's, the slate is clean, if you will. It's just, the question is, would paying a higher HSA amount from the county from the county's contribution, assist in having anyone go with that plan as opposed to the high deductible plan?
So the reasoning would be, I mean, they had an increase of, what was the increase in health insurance? Was it 3.5%? I get confused between here and Lambert.
Yeah, that's what we ended up getting it down to, offsetting it with.
3.5%. So the impetus
Well, now,
of,
just,
okay, go ahead.
the increase was 3.5%, the increase is gonna be 7%, is that correct? But we picked up from reserves that we had from previous years that we were able to accumulate enough to hold the increase to the employees to 3.5%.
We wanted to deflect some of the increase.
But this is the last time we're gonna be able to do that because there won't be enough excess next year in the event there is a large increase to do anything.
Okay, so again, now, the reasoning to increase the I want to make sure that I understand it, and I think it's important from the public to understand it. To increase the 250, the county's contribution towards this, right now is 250 for single, 500 for a married. We are proposing the county would now contribute 500, single 1,000. What is the cost of that? And the hope is more people go over to HSA account, it actually reduces our premium or our portion of the premiums. Is that a correct statement?
Not the
completely,
premiums.
No.
Okay, okay.
You were,
The thought is long-term savings, moving the employees over to the high deductible health savings account. Employees, long-term savings with that plan.
Okay. That the company would reap benefit of, company and the employees would reap the benefit of the long-term. I just want to make sure that,
Correct.
that I got my hands around it, and I think it's important, you know, for the public standpoint.
The buy-up plan, and you guys probably understand better, but the employee chooses to do the buy-up plan, they have lower premiums, but they're paying that difference, the county doesn't make that up.
Yes.
So that's why it's not, if they go to the HSA, it's gonna save us in premiums, it really doesn't, it saves themselves. Going to it, it's just the uncertainty and people are sure of doing this HSA, they have very high deductibles with the HSA, which is why when companies, the big push of HSAs come, 10 years ago? Why a lot of companies started offering to get their employees to go to it, a little bit of buy-in, because when you start out, you gotta have money in there, and it is capped by the IRS, what you can put in every year. And they can do, payroll contributions to get it in there and save it, and it can carry over. But was to get them to, so they could get that money in there, so they're able to, because they've gotta start paying that as soon as they have their first
For
expenses.
deductible.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess, what we gotta look at is, and the other thought was if we went halfway instead of the full amount. I don't know that we've gotta read, did they share, because you're on the committee, I'm not, but of what, I know a lot contribute a lot more to HSAs for their employees, but do we have any type of market data on that says what companies have done?
Julie did some research on her own, just reaching out to other counties. And we're not way low, but we're not one of the highest either, so we're, it's about average.
What's the
So-
net effect by us going, and I know this is kind of a moving target there, if we would go to the higher deductible?
Currently, it's about 68,000, where only half of that comes from the general fund. We've spent about 34,000 this year in the contributions.
Okay.
so you either 1.5 times that or 2 times that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the, one thing I always thought that why I liked trying to do this for our employees for the saving aspect and everything else is the fact that I have quizzed the, insurance a couple of times over the years about, can we have another tier in the plan? And we just are not a big enough organization to do that without it really costing our family plan holders.
Yeah.
If we went to where we had a single, a spouse, or a family, so if you have a spouse on, you're paying the family deductibles, you're having to meet those, because there is no, cost you the same amount. My son goes off my plan this year because of age, but I'm gonna pay the exact same with or without him on the plan, but he's gotta go off because of his age. So so that's one reason I favor doing something. And that's, like I said, the rule.
And I talked to the non-general fund departments that contribute now, and they were okay with they had a little grumbling, but in the end, they'll do what the county does.
So we're
Well,
talking.
I'll propose that we go to $750 per family this year. And what is it, $250 now?
Hit the median
So,
at 375.
375.
I like that idea. Well, it's a way to do something, and we're not bulking up the idea, but we're just taking a smaller step and moving it up, and
So if it's 1.5 times, we're talking about adding roughly $30,000 more.
No, 15,000,
To
16,000.
the general.
I can buy into that.
I'll put it in the form of a motion.
Pardon?
I will put it in the form of a motion.
And I will second that.
we have a motion and a second to raise the county's contribution towards the employees' HSA health savings accounts, bringing the single to $375 and the family to $750.
That's correct.
Is there any further discussion? Yes, thank
You know,
you. Thank you to the work of the Health Advisory Committee of keeping, what was a big increase, lesser impact on the employees because of the reserves.
I think another thing that it just needs to be mentioned with the improved economy And with the competitive nature that's out in the marketplace out there and the tremendous expense of bringing in new hires and training them is kind of the impetus behind this, that we would want to increase the benefits slightly to our employees. We don't want to be losing people. We don't want to be bringing new people in. It's a no-win situation. So
Yeah.
we're not doing this because we just want to be nice people. Doing this for our own benefit.
Any further
They can put
comments?
that in the
Commissioner
paper.
Zoller, Commissioner Zoller speaking for himself.
All right, so
Church is a bear.
we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Zoller?
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes, approved. Thank
Know me
you.
well enough, I say what I do.
All right.
Engage, brain, and mouth before brain.
The other item listed on, under old business is the museum building. Do we want to see if there's any chance she's got date, time, and bid information, or do you think that's not possible? I don't.
She's been on the phone with AT&T all morning. She says she got the stuff last week. She didn't have a time to finish reading it on Friday. She was hoping to get time, date set today, but she didn't.
We're just going to have to do it next week.
We'll do it Tuesday.
Okay,
She
so
did
that
get,
would-
but she did get the stuff from Palmer last week as they said they would. So,
All right. Next week.
let's shoot for Tuesday.
Alrighty. All right, new business. We've got down Regional Planning Executive Committee. They did, at the Regional Planning Board meeting last week, they did make the appropriate bylaw change they needed to make in order to put one of us on their executive committee, because we're all three members of their board. But the exec committee did not, their bylaws did not read that one of the seats, whether it's an officer seat or otherwise, could be a commissioner. So they've done that, and in order for that to be engaged, or when that appointment gets made, it required a resignation, and they received the resignation as well from Jim Disto to step off of the exec committee. So he would open his seat to a commissioner being appointed. So they would like that to happen, so we need to make that appointment. And then what we'll do is in January, in a regular reorganizational meeting, so this would be just to finish till February. In January, we reorganize, that'll be once, like all of our other things, SIDEC and Foster Economic Development and Chamber and all that stuff. We then appoint somebody to be a year-by-year basis, is how we would do it with the other appointments. But from now, it would start till February, that's their annual meeting, and then it would, whoever we appoint in January. So, anybody want to volunteer, want to do this for sure? I'm game, but I don't have to be me by any means. But if somebody else wants to do it, have at it. We just need to formally appoint.
I'm fine. I was on it before, and the only reason that I wasn't on it is I missed a meeting in February when they appointed the new members. So
Right.
I would be happy to get back on it if my fellow commissioners would desire that.
But we are all on the board.
We're all on the
We're all
board.
on the board.
The strictly
Okay.
executive committee.
Yes, exactly.
I'm happy to stay on the board as a board member, not necessarily executive, so you too.
I will be the new appointee.
Okay,
I mean, if Holly, if you agree with that.
that's fine. So we will appoint Fred, and we'll just send them documentation that that's who it is. All right. We are then down to the bill vouchers.
Okay.
Or, yeah, because we got time before the hearing.
I have bill vouchers, batch number 6644, 6839, 6871 through 73. I have a.
Can I ask a question before
Sure.
we do these? Madam Chairman, is there, when we go through these and go through the litany of all these changes, is there a dollar amount that we ought to just lump together rather than say $23.99 and go through that whole scenario every meeting? I mean, I understand that we ought to pay attention to the large ones, but
Oh, when there's several broken down by
yeah, I
lines.
mean, do we need to go to iteration?
If
of-
it's printed before us, I think it could be a summary of, the appropriate, the five different line transfers for a grand total of, I'm okay with that. If-
Well, I think if it's over $1,000, maybe we need to hear it, but if it's less than $1,000, we waste a lot of people's times by going over that.
And again, you're talking about on the advances and the moves
Any transfers.
and those
A
kinds
lot
of
of these
stuff.
are in and out stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, the ones that are listed on here today, that I think you're referring to, are, some of these funds have been, not necessarily closed, but they're not being used anymore. So there's a minimal amount left in that fund, and what we need to do is, we have to close the account, so we have to put it in, and their transfers out, and we have to, so it's all one step that we have to do in step of 3. But it's closing the account, moving the money, it has to come back to general fund to go to the department. So, it's a,
I think they call that government fund accounting.
Not fun accounting,
Fund.
fund accounting.
If you, yeah, it ain't fun about it at all. So, but I agree with you, Mike, but quite frankly, I think from a government reporting standpoint, you gotta dot every I and cross every T. I mean, I agree with you, but I think it's necessary. I mean, if you're starting to close an account, you can't just lump a bunch of accounts together. I mean, you gotta do it separately.
All right, proceed.
okay, I have a supplement to the permanent appropriations for the Metrich Drug Law Enforcement Fund, putting $10,000 into equipment. I have resolution authorizing a fund advance from the general fund to the VOCA grant for $10,000. I have a resolution authorizing an appropriation adjustment within the Bascom New Regal Bond Service Fund from the note interest to the note principal for a total of $2,000. I have a resolution authorizing an appropriation adjustment within the CDBG FY13 fund, moving $1,943 from the public rehab Fostoria to other expense. I have a decrease to the permanent appropriations for the CDBG FY13 fund. Again, she's closing the account, so she's reducing by $40,000. We've got 2 different amounts on here. Just for the $40,000. I have a resolution authorizing a fund advance repayment to the Water Pollution Control Fund for $46,750 back to the general fund. I have an appropriation adjustment within the general fund, moving $10,000 from workers' comp to supplies. I have a resolution authorizing a fund advance repayment from the County Road 16 petition ditch fund in the amount of $5,647.80. The next 2 resolutions, are for the, moving the Water Pollution Control Fund amount of $93 to the general fund, because that fund, again, has been closed, no more project out of that fund. I have a supplement to the permanent appropriation to the general fund, putting $1,882.08 into the transfers out. These are actually in order, otherwise I could just follow it that way. Okay. Next 2, for the $1,700, this is moving money out of the EMS trust fund to, and like I said, they have to close it out, they have to put it back into the general fund, and for the general fund to put it back into the ambulance service fund, which is the new 064 account. EMS trust fund hasn't been used for at least 10 years, and there's $1,700 left available, so we're trying to clean up those accounts. Same reason for the $23.99. It is in the Citizens Corps Program Grant Fund. So we need to transfer it to the general fund, back out of the general fund to the EMA fund. Also for the Hazardous Materials Fund, same situation. It is going to be transferred to the general fund, back out to the EMA fund for $158.09. I have a resolution authorizing the Seneca County Job and Family Services to accept TNF monies from Montgomery County and authorizing Kathy Oliver, Director of Job and Family Services, to sign this and other leave documentation retroactive to October 7th. Good for her for looking into other counties to get some additional funding. I have a resolution establishing Seneca County's health insurance COBRA rates for calendar year 2016. This is if somebody leaves.
That's
Yes.
18 months.
Yep. And that's all there is.
These reflect the new
Yes,
premium,
yep,
the full premium.
yep, yep. That's all I have.
Every penny accounted for.
I make a
I
motion.
mean, it's important to note, I think, that, the new premiums, just so everybody knows what the total cost of things are, a family plan is gross $1,540 a month. And for the HSA plan, it's $1,250 or something like that. So if you're buying it on your own, that's what insurance will cost you a month. It's tough for a family, real tough. Number of folks making $30,000 a year or on that range that are paying $18,000 a year for insurance. Wow.
Yeah. All right. That's all of our resolutions, so the motion.
Make a motion that we approve those resolutions as just discussed.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further questions or concerns? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes.
Commissioner Zoller?
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes, all stand approved. Thank you. All right. We are, at that time, we will do the hearing for reemployment test.
This is something that the county, the commissioners are required to do. We've been given a letter. Dan Stahl will be retiring at the end of October, and he has shown his interest into being rehired. The commissioners have to have a hearing within 15 to 30 days of him coming back. He would like to come back on November 2nd?
Yeah, I think it is.
November 2nd. And we had to have the hearing for any public comments, concerns regarding reemployment.
Do we need to have a sign-in sheet for this?
Yeah.
Good catch. There's a clipboard that tipped me off on that. I saw that. Cool, thank you.
Public comments or comments from the board too?
Either.
I think it's
I know where this is
important.
heading.
Pardon?
I think I know where this is heading.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to know that as we do this, the long-term objective is to cross-train the EMS director with the EMT department so that at some day, which we hope is far in the future, that Mr. Stahl decides to retire completely, that we could look at consolidating the EMT and EMS under one director. And so this is kind of gives us an opportunity for the county to do some extensive cross-training during this period. Would that be a fair assumption?
Sure.
If I just stuck my foot in my mouth, somebody's gonna tell me that.
No, no,
I don't know how to do things, but just to lay them on the line.
No,
That's fine.
no.
We'll just have to work a little bit on those acronyms, Fred. CPR and VCR are not the same. You didn't say that, just by
Okay.
Well, and we're, like I said, right at the time, I don't know if we need to formally wait. It's 10:29. In case anybody comes in and wanted to say anything, but I'm guessing they're here and nobody is desiring to. But necessary step in order for the county to do this, that we have to have the hearing. So once the clipboard's made its way back up here, then we can end the hearing.
Oh, 10:31, 10:30.
10:30 right now.
Congratulations, Dan.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good.
You made it. And Ken, I guess.
Yeah, Ken's the lucky one, actually.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I came in here and asked for money earlier. I still haven't gotten anything but a, not a no.
Not
You
a
got,
no.
you got a firm maybe.
I got a firm maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolute, probably not no.
All right. We don't, I mean, I didn't formally call anything, we just did the hearing. We don't need to adjourn the hearing or anything.
No, we'll get the employment letter around, so.
Okay.
Hearing's been heard.
All right. Through that step, huh?
Yeah, I'll be back the second.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Well, thank
Welcome
you.
to your new job.
I think I end up with the weekend off is how it works out.
Take a cruise.
All right. Well, then this will take us to an opening for citizens' comments. So at this time, is there anybody that would like to make comments? Tom?
I have a comment on the museum. I love what you are trying to do. But past commissioners, what some of us sat through, wanted to sell items out of that museum very strongly. And they also wanted to sell the museum. And I think we were about as close to that as what happened to the courthouse. Same commissioners. Some way, is there any way that you can write this in stone that they can't, somebody can't, the commissioners as a whole can't sell that building? Sell that property?
I actually don't know that type of binding restrictions we can or can't. That's a good question, but I don't know that we can on, I asked, they're not related to the museum recently of someone, and they said you couldn't, but I don't know.
Can we get a, I mean, actually, it's a good point.
It was
I mean,
very close.
yeah,
That was very close to happening.
very few things we can bind our successors in. One is borrowing money and bonding. And I don't know, I'd be interesting to get the opinion from Derek on that. Can we do something to bind our successors?
In the museum.
Museum,
We'll have to
I mean,
inquire.
I'm not the only one that sat through that. I mean, there's
Yeah.
other people here that sat through that.
I asked it on
It's valid.
unrelated legislation that was done in the past, and someone was kind of looking for, a memorandum of understanding that we would keep that in place. And if we could, guarantee them as they move forward with the project, it would still be available to them, because unlike in other types of work, there's grandfathered clause, once a contractor so far doing work, that if regulations change, they were so far, they get to continue, but this is wind energy related, but it is not with the siting board for that type of energy. But I was told that we would not be able to
Well,
bind, because the legislation was put in place and can be removed by the same legislative body.
Well, at this point in time, we're bound under a deed that was transferred to us, that the county accepted. I think maybe the legal way to do something, Tom, would be we kiddingly talked about the fact that if the property on the corner of South Washington Street, Market Street, were not used as a courthouse, it reverted back to, in theory, it reverted back to the previous owner, which would be Hedges or whomever the heck owned it and granted it to the city. We could put something, I would think, I've got a few hours to get my law degree yet, but I would think that we could put something in a deed restriction that says that if the county decided they no longer wanted to own the building, it will revert back to the Historical Society or to someone that would accept it. But, as you guys know, we haven't really honored the deed as it sits now. So I think that probably a more likely path would be to put something in a deed that says that if the county decides they're going to abandon the building, that it automatically reverts back to X. I don't know who that X is, but.
Yeah. Well, past commissioners they wanted to make money off of this, selling it.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Well, yeah, because there's
Some items.
they found out there's some expensive items there.
There were some
and they were
items.
Yeah.
Gonna raise cash.
Which,
Well, this is, I mean, you know, it's, if you remember when Detroit had their problems, they were, the headline was they were gonna sell off the artifacts in their museum that had some real value, you know, to fund the city. That, obviously, that didn't happen, but close. You're right. I would think that the most probable way to, as Commissioner Zorro said, we really can't bind future commissioners by our actions, but I think the most logical way, if everybody would agree, would be to put some restriction in the deed that says if there's a decision made to no longer own it, that it has to be given to whomever we decide and accept it. The logical place would be the Historical Society, I would think, or museum board or something.
I just thought that needed to be brought up to you people to try to do something, and I appreciate anything you can do. I think the county, the people would appreciate anything you could do. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Tom.
Anything else for citizens' comments? Okay. Seeing none, accept a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Seconded.
Moved in second, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
We stand adjourned, 10:36.